morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs. Yes, as Mr. Grizzly says, finally. It's been a morning. Deck-wise, it's been a morning. Welcome to the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, March 13th, 2025, and it looks like it's going to be an okay day here at the Beaver Lodge. Pretty cloudy, overcast sky, but it looks like the sun is trying to make an effort to come through, so hopefully we'll get a little vitamin D boost over the course of the day. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, yay, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. And Creator, be thanked for it because I was having a hell of a time trying to get this thing programmed on my own today. But Mr. Grizzly did come to the rescue. A big thank you goes to our podcast funding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.com. We have a bit of a show for you today. Today we will look at Mark Carney's acceptance speech for the Liberal leadership and talk about a couple of things that have happened over the past couple of days because as the title goes and as I'm feeling a little musical, everything's coming up, Carney and PeePee Spiels. All right, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
I only got a couple hours sleep, so not great.
What I suspected.
And reading how reading about the annexation of Canada and Trump is deadly serious about it is really disturbing. There's reports coming out of the U.S. from intel folks, and the same thing in Canada. And it's like the threat isn't a threat; it's very real. He really wants to do it. And as the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told us, he was serious about it, and he is really serious about it. So, yeah, that's a little distressing for one's mental health.
Yep.
Do I have to join the reserves? If I have to, I have to. If it comes to that, it comes to that. I'm not going to sit idly by and let this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's nobody needs additional existential angst. Let's put it that way. And unfortunately, we are going to be having it delivered by the bucket load for the foreseeable future.
Yes,
sadly. My mental health is doing a little better. I actually got some sleep last night, as opposed to last night where I didn't get a wink. But of course, one night out of two, I'm still a little behind. Relatively good spirits considering but not as patient as I normally am. A little more easily frustrated, particularly by technology. There was a couple of moments of hands thrown up in the air, and maybe I'll just do this at 11 and try again later. see, see if the stars have moved over in the next 2 hours, and I'm allowed near a toaster again. Um, there are certain days, I tell you. But hey, we're all here together, and we're going to make it work, and we're going to have a good time,
No,
despite
try and
the
make it work.
existential pain. We are going to go a little bit, use a lot of the same set of the clips that I had for you yesterday, Mr. Grizzly. If you still have the email handy,
Just give me a moment. I'll take it up.
to pick it up. But before we show you some clips, there have been some developments and there is some news. First of all, it seems that today will be the day that Doug Ford and Dominique Leblanc, possibly from what I've been hearing on TV, as well with International Trade Minister François-Philippe Champagne, will have that big meeting with the U.S. Commerce Secretary. The U.S. Commerce Secretary is a bit of an interesting character. Finding out more about him, there was a very, very interesting CBC front burner on Howard Lutnick, I think yesterday, that you might want to listen to get a little bit of a measure of the man. But he seems to be described in the United States as the most hated man on Wall Street. Seems that he comes from very humble beginnings and had a very difficult life. Lost both his parents at a very early age, not both at the same time, but two separately on second occasions. But lost both parents by the time he was 18. They were three children, and essentially had to find their own way. And he got accepted at a prestigious school, and then at a firm. Investment banking, that type of stuff, financial firm, that was a little more considered blue collar among the industry, and they don't mean blue collar in the nice way when they say that.
They're trying to insult him.
Yeah, but
because he's not old money.
Yeah, not old money, but prepared to do things that other reputable firms wouldn't do. And it seems that someone there liked them and helped them and brought them all the way up. And then in a very Trumpian-like move, when that person sort of said, I would like you to take over the corporation, at some point did some type of thing to cut all of the family out of it.
Of course.
Take complete control of it. So somebody loved him and mentored him for his entire career, and then he shoved his family, allegedly, something like that, if I understand the story correctly, how it goes. And then he kept on making that type of money and got really, really big. And but turns out has this type of reputation for making deals with people where if you really, 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 really didn't read the fine print, you found out that when you were done, whatever you thought was yours actually wasn't. And stuff of the like. And apparently he and Trump have been really, really good friends for a long time. Because I guess similar quote unquote work ethic. So when you see Howard Lutnick on TV and he's doing things like talking like that, but Donald Trump is the greatest businessman that ever lived, and he's so smart and everything like this, just wait 25 years and see if life expectancy will go up. You'll see, like this, because of Donald Trump's policies. But in the meantime, let him do whatever. Everybody just needs to show some respect. It's like, so loudmouth, fast talking, and everything very much in the Trump mode. Everything Trump does is genius, and Trump always wins. And despite the evidence of your eyes and ears. Right, Trump always wins. In Trump world, everything gets reshifted so that he's the star and the hero of his narrative, no matter what happens. Right?
Yeah.
It's like he got Doug Ford to take those, unreasonable electricity tariffs down. It's like, no, Doug Ford wanted a meeting. He went in there, took steps, and got a meeting.
Well,
there are some people that are saying that even in the States that are saying Doug Ford out-Trumped Trump.
mhm, which is not that difficult because Trump's not that smart. I have the clip of a nutlick here, basically groveling to Trump.
That's the one.
Yeah, this is something else, folks.
Yeah.
Like, okay, here we go. It's only like, I don't know, 21 seconds.
Are you lowering
And you'll
the
see
temperature
nutlick applies here.
deliberately?
Sorry, I'll start it over.
Are you lowering the temperature deliberately?
Well said. We're going to lower the temperature. You know, he thought he'd be sort of the big man and tackle Donald Trump, but you know you can't tackle Donald Trump. He is the most important, the smartest, the most capable leader in the world, and he's not going to let someone push him around.
Okay.
Did he say that? And
Because did you see Theo Moudakis' cartoon?
yes, I have it here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because let's
I
put
have
that
it.
up. So you will notice that Letnick and Doug Ford have a lot of things in common, right? Oh, yeah, you know, right? Type things. Don't worry, it's not that. No, I won't touch the green belt. Donald Trump is the smartest one. Right? You notice the common thing.
I'm the negotiator. So it's Doug Ford with a baseball bat on his shoulder at the White House front door with Trump peering through the window with fear in his eyes. I'm the negotiator.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Trump is Trump, and then Canada's quote unquote Trump is actually larger, bigger, carries a baseball bat, and can actually speak in complete sentences.
Oh, yeah.
You're in trouble. And as opposed to American Trump, Canada Trump, or our version of it to the United States, which is Doug Ford. Doug Ford is a friendly, likable version of Trump.
Folksy.
And Trump is just a dick.
Folksy with a bit of a tinge of self-awareness, whereas Trump doesn't have that.
Completely devoid.
And neither does Pierre Poilievre.
Yes, and Doug Ford knows when to retreat.
Yeah. Poilievre has doubled down on his, this is the second time he's done this. Mark Carney has nothing but slogans. I have a plan to put Canada first. Zero self-awareness.
There's one of those that actually has a picture below it, Trump Pierre at a rally like this, and like somebody's got like a Pierre for prime minister or bring it home sign. Somebody's got like Canada first, and somebody's got like stop the crime, and it's like there's all these circles of all these things are really slogans, eh?
Yeah.
Just okay. So you have this dynamic going on. The meeting will take place. Doug Ford wanted a meeting. Doug Ford got a meeting, no matter how Lutnick or Trump are spinning it. Now, the problem is that, however, we're having a bit of a problem with Doug Ford with spin once again. Unfortunately, Doug Ford stepped in it because he was claiming that this whole meeting was this big thing to, like, start renegotiating NAFTA or something like that. And it seems that, according to Dominic LeBlanc, not quite. Not quite. And Dominic LeBlanc is the finance minister, the actual counterpart who was meeting. So it seems that Doug Ford, like the previous meeting he had, was overselling it a little bit, which is like, damn, Doug. It's like, why lie here? Here, the truth would do. You don't have to pretend that the meeting is for something bigger than it is. You just don't. Right? You got a meeting with U.S. Secretary of Commerce, with the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of International Trade, who will probably be there. And you had a meeting with the Prime Minister designate before that to go, you're winning, dude. You don't need to embellish. Right. Now, obviously, Team Canada's overall strategy is to get us to a point where we're fast forwarding through all these every 30-day psychodramas and just negotiating something down on paper. Where, as I mentioned yesterday, the Canadian solution isn't, well, guess what number I have in my head today from 1 to 1 billion? And if you get it right, you tariffs on. But if you don't, well, just keep throwing stuff at me, and I'll tell you when you get the number right. If I don't change the number every day as well. If I don't tell you the rule, that is I could change the number every day. So you picked 5,000 the first day. So after the first day I picked, my number was 5,000, knowing you'll never pick it again. You'll never be right. Because I'm sneaky like that. Right? That's not a negotiation. What do you want? What do you need? What are your expectations? How do you expect this to go down? Put it down on paper. And then we'll see if we're able to meet that or willing. Right? But this thing, steel and lumber, steel, and now it's going to be lumber and dairy, and then tomorrow it's going to be this, and on April 2nd it's going to be reciprocal and this, and oh no, not this one today, but these ones are still on, and the world does not need that. And trust me, he's getting plenty of calls from within the house. But one of the reasons that stock market really dropped the other day is because Trump went from during the election campaign, we're going to make so much money and everybody's going to be so rich, oh my God, to, well, there might be a recession, and him not much caring about whether it's committing actions over and over and over again that will seem to provoke a recession, that seem to indicate that he doesn't really care if there is going to be one, now that he's president for life, at least in his mind, right? It's not the best of situation for us, obviously, trying to negotiate with Jello that you can't nail to a wall. But you got to do what you got to do, and you got to try to pressure and move things. And like I said, we're going on offense a little bit, and we're moving some chess pieces. The U.S. is spinning it in all types of ways that, we're making all these moves. But it's like, again, if you're looking at the dynamics, this is twice that Howard Lutnick placed a phone call to Doug Ford saying, hey, calm this down. You got Peter Navarro on TV going, Canada, tamp that down. You got Donald Trump saying, oh, well, Doug Ford is a strong leader and he was a gentleman, then switches his mind the next day. Next day, he didn't have nice things to say about Doug Ford.
He's a turncoat, just like Trump.
No, it was Trump the next day. He turned he turned on himself. When he was close to that helicopter or something like that the day before, Doug Ford was a strong leader and a gentleman, but yesterday, somebody needed to be put back in his place again. But the meeting is taking place at the same time as at 12:01, or it's 1 minute in the day today, our steel and aluminum tariffs went up. And since that wasn't enough to make up the entire $29.8 billion in counter tariffs, in addition to the $30 billion in tariffs that we already have coming, and the $125 billion extra that are slated to come 21 days after the first 30 billion, if nothing changes, and so far nothing has changed, so it looks like they're coming. So far we have about $60 billion in tariffs against the United States, with 125 coming. And for the steel and aluminum tariffs, we had to add a couple of other things like computers and sports equipment and stuff like that, things that might have some steel and aluminum in them. No real reaction yet from the United States on the fact that we hit back on the steel, but there's a thing going on right now, whereas Canada says it will do something. If X happens, Y will happen, and then X happens, and Y happens. And then in the United States, it's on this day, X will happen. And then on this day, X happens for about 2 hours. And then it's not happening anymore. And then it's sort of happening. And then something else is happening. And then Y is happening. And then there's a Z happening. And then there's a Q and an A thrown in there. And then, whereas Canada is just like, if this happens, we will do this. And then that happens. And then we do that. And they say, and now if this happens, we will do a certain thing. And that happens, and we do that certain thing. And nowhere along the process do any of us stutter. There's two things going on. One, just by being extremely consequential and following through, we are showing the United States something that they didn't think that they would see. But two, and more importantly, we are teaching the world at the moment. Right? He went after us first for a reason, because he wanted to teach the world something. Well, it's maybe our turn to give a little lesson. After all, we are the second most educated country in the world.
Correct.
So if we know how to take lessons, we certainly know how to give a few.
What they seem to forget is that you do not test a Canadian's resolve.
No.
You don't do it. You will do so at your own peril.
Yep.
Do not mistake our kindness and politeness and compassion for weakness.
We can afford to be kind and just want, because we know we are not meek. We know what we're made of.
It's the amount
we have
of
the
people
luxury of.
I encounter online saying, if America decides to invade, you'll fold in 3 days. Yeah, how'd that work out for Russia and Ukraine? 20 years in Afghanistan and you're left with your tail between your legs. How'd Vietnam go? Korea? Iraq? Invaders rarely, almost never, are successful.
Because it's easy to take a country, but it's a whole lot harder to hold it.
Well, it's not even that easy to take a country, as evidenced by what took place in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
They invaded. They've been beaten down. The Russians have suffered 700,000 casualties.
They had to bring in North Korea
and counting. Yeah. Don't test our resolve.
And we did a lot to train them.
Yes, and I can tell you something else. There are millions of Americans who would side with us. There are millions of American soldiers who would not go into that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know, we do this, we're on our own.
Mm-hmm.
You invade Canada, you are on your own.
Mm-hmm. And there's
no one will support you. No one will trade with you. Well, maybe Russia will.
Yeah. And there's buzz about other little things, right? Like in Europe, a whole bunch of countries seem to have gotten together to put together like several $1 billion, even over $1 trillion package when it comes to things such as defense for continental security. But there are interesting things going on, just like in Canada with these steel and lumber, not steel and aluminum tariffs. 90% of our exports go to the United States, and they use a lot of that for their military. Well, Europeans buy a lot of stuff from the United States. And it would seem that when they all met and they decided that they were going to spend a whole whack of money on defense for the continent, they made it very clear, because everybody's thinking, well, gee, if 63% of what you buy in Europe is for your defense is spent in the United States, and you're planning to spend, let's say, $613 billion more over the next couple of years in defense. Well, that's a nice chunk of change for us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Except that the president of the European Commission said, these loans should finance purchases from European producers to help boost our own defense industry, while suggesting multi-year contracts that provide stability for the industry are what is needed. So they plan to spend $163 billion US. Normally, the US share of that would have been $100 billion. Now they get nothing. And they pay 25% more for our steel and aluminum that go into the... Great move, Donald.
Brilliant.
Great move. Well done. The loans are to help smaller countries and to provide steady multi-year contracts to European defense suppliers so that they can expand. And of course, when the European countries now build the infrastructure to take on $100 billion more of defense production on the European continent, I'm guessing that means they're going to have to upscale some factories and some plants to do that. And once they build that capacity, I guess they're going to have to keep those plants going with future contracts that are also targeted to Europe. So I guess the United States loses the 63% of all of those too.
Mm-hmm. We're living in interesting times.
That's what happened when you tested Europe's resolve, Donald.
Yes.
And Canadians are pettier.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Passive aggressive pettiness is our brand.
And if you don't think that we had a bit of a hand behind the scenes in coordinating everybody or trying to convince them that this might be in their best interest to do, again, we have some oceanfront property on the north coast of Saskatchewan for you. The Prime Minister has been very busy on phone calls and trips to Europe lately.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think. Again, we're not a big power. We don't talk a lot. But people like us. And people trust us.
We do this.
Yes.
We don our blue jacket and our balaclavas and we go out and raise hell.
But people like us and people trust us and people want to work with us. And people know that we're a bit of a canary in the coal mine. So if stuff is happening to us, they know they're next.
Well, he's destroying the U.S. economy rapidly because the global trade, all of Europe basically has said, we're not buying American anymore. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
But here's the other thing now. If Europe is producing more for itself, and let's say we produce more for ourselves or we hand more contracts over to Europe, let's say we cancel those F-35s and, we buy those Saabs or we'll buy those other ones.
The Gripens, or maybe we can get online with Flavio and say, hey, you have a lot of manufacturers. How quickly could you pivot to manufacture a new Avro Arrow?
A new Avro. Yeah, exactly. Why not? Yeah, that would be certainly big for national pride and national unity.
You saw how quickly they were able to pivot and manufacture PPE during the start of the pandemic. Flavio is a very intelligent man who has his finger on the pulse. I'll bet you he's already said, guys, let's see what we can do. They built the car. They built an electric car called the Arrow. How much you want to bet they're looking at plans to build a new fighter, a Canadian made?
Why not, right?
We have the people. We have the manpower, the power. We have the intelligence. We have the engineers. We have the designers. We have all of it. You got to remember the supply chain.
Aerospace is kind of our thing.
The supply chain for the F-35, a heck of a lot of it is based in this country. Will the F-35 contract be canceled? I don't know.
Well, the F-35 has a kill switch, which is controlled from the United States of America. So if the United States is hostile to us,
I keep hearing that, but I don't know that that's actually true because I cannot see the Royal Canadian Air Force purchasing anything that could be controlled by a foreign nation. I can't see that happening.
I can't see that either, but apparently, I guess then
I've read that, but
uploads and whatnot.
I've read that, but I don't know that that's true. But I have read that too. So
yeah, if there's anybody out there that can tell us absolutely if that is indeed true, because that's to the best of our knowledge based on what's out there. Neither of us are military experts with that type of stuff, but still, it's like, do you really when a nation declares itself openly hostile to you and wanting to annex you, I mean, continuing to help it fund its military purchases is a little difficult. So the other thing that's happening with that is that if Europe is producing more for itself and then building all the infrastructure to keep producing for itself and maintaining for itself, and let's say Canada is doing more business with them, and let's say Mexico even might want to do more business with them because Mexico has a military as well. We don't hear a lot about it, but I'm sure they have a national defense strategy. If we're all ordering, then what happens to the United States, who also fills a lot of orders for the rest of the world? And then what happens to the United States' capacity to supply itself if it no longer is receiving contracts from the rest of the world?
Don't mistake my exuberance for building a Canadian fighter jet as naivete in saying that we can start this right away and we'll have something immediately. I know it will take time. I'm not naive. But we could buy the Gripen or the Typhoon from Sweden, dump the F-35 if need be, and we could start to ramp up production on our own front. It's not pie in the sky. I don't think we can have something immediately. My goodness.
And that's for everything, right? It's like, yeah, we just got to reorient. Like if the Europeans are going to be producing more, then more of our steel and aluminum will probably be needed over there. It's like, yeah, but they got to build the plants first and expand them, right? None of these things happen, right? The United States, same thing. Like, that's why we'll just bring all the manufacturing there. Okay, well, to replace the Canadian manufacturing and parts, whatnot, they'd have to build 5 or 6 huge plants down there, and by the time all the money and all that kind of stuff, and they're built and they're operational, that's about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do in the meantime?
Yeah.
And where does production shift in the meantime? I'm sure Europe and Japan and India and China are going, hey, thanks, guys. We're disrupting yourselves for the next 10 years. We'll take over from here. Thank you. Because over the next 10 years, people are still going to need cars. And you've just upended the entire North American system.
Yeah.
Right. So
he's a Russian asset, period. And he's trying to destroy the economy for the benefit of a very few. And he's in bed with Putin. It's as simple as that.
Well, at this point, the whole theory, the prime minister's theory that, he's trying to hollow us out or weaken us out.
Mm-hmm.
Business thing, weaken out, vulture capitalism, right? Weaken out a company, beat it down, weaken it like this, and then buy it.
Buy it. Yeah.
Lower its value, then buy it, then acquire it. So it's what's going on. But what if the plan is even worse for the Americans? What if the Donald's plan is to actually really just sink the American economy as fast as possible so people start clamoring from stuff, and then he can declare a state of emergency that allows him to do all this repressive stuff he wants?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, would like to take us out, but what if we're the distraction?
Yes, that's entirely possible. Yes.
That thought came to me yesterday, and it put a big chill up and down my spine.
It very much might be just that too. Yeah. I mean, look, Project 2025 is well underway. They are on their way to becoming Gilead. And if you don't believe me, Tommy Tuberville. Have you heard what he had to say recently? Oh boy, this is something. Listen to this. This is how it begins. Remember, it starts small and incremental and works its way up. Well, it's already well underway. And here's an example of exactly that.
Of education. We have K through 12 and we have higher ed. We've got to treat both of them different. But when it comes to protesters, we got to make sure we treat all of them the same. Mm-hmm. Send them to jail. Free speech is great, but hate, free speech is not what we need in these universities, and they don't need to be doing things that they're preaching from Hamas about anti-Semitism.
You can't even pronounce it.
No, he can't pronounce it, but it's like send them
I
to
hate
jail.
it, but I hate it so much I can't pronounce it.
Send them to jail.
Yep. Oh, speaking of
protesting. Hate speech we can't stand. I'm like, you have a guy who gave a Nazi salute twice on the same stage during the inauguration. How's that not hate speech?
Mm-hmm. On that little thing, since we're talking briefly about the Americans here, Apparently, there's a Canadian woman. It happened to two
Yes.
Germans as well, but there's a Canadian woman that got arrested coming back into United States from Mexico.
That story
Who
right
was
here.
there on a work visa? Yeah,
Detained by
uh,
ICE after entering San Diego border. Third foreign national sent to detention center from San Ysidro crossing. We blow this up a bit so it's easier to see for the folks at home and me. Canadian entrepreneur detained by ICE is speaking out after she got arrested while trying to enter the San Diego border to obtain a visa last Monday. And yeah, this is really kind of disturbing. I'll get into the meat of it here. Every single guard that sees me is like, "What are you doing here? I don't understand. You're Canadian. How are you here?" Jasmine Mooney said in an interview from the Arizona Immigration Detention Center she is now fighting to get out of. Mooney told Team 10, this is ABC News 10 in San Diego, that she is appalled by the conditions inside the private for-profit detention facility in San Luis. "I have never in my life seen anything so inhumane," she said in an interview with a guest investigative reporter, Austin Grabish. Mooney, who previously was working in Los Angeles for a health tonic beverage company on a TN visa, I don't know what that is, which was revoked, said she went to the border with a new job offer and visa paperwork. She got her first visa at the San Ysidro border crossing on the advice of a Los Angeles attorney who met her at the border. Mooney, who is the co-founder of the Holy Water brand, said a U.S. border officer at the Vancouver airport in Canada revoked her first visa when she was visiting home. "They told me I was unprofessional because I didn't have a proper letterhead on my paperwork." Mooney said a border officer told her because she had a prior visa revoked, she needed to go to a U.S. consulate to apply for legal status to work in the country again. She said the officer refused to allow her to go back to Mexico and ordered her to be detained.
which is usually a thing. They give you the choice. So you can come here and be detained, or you can go back to Mexico. And they're not allowing people to go back now.
One issue border officers may have had with Mooney's previous U.S. employment is that one drink, Holy Water, advertised on its website, contains Delta-9 full-spectrum hemp. The 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp, including Delta-9 THC, if the product contained no more than 0.3% THC. Anything more is still considered a controlled substance under federal law. CBP wouldn't tell Team 10 the reason for Mooney's detention, citing privacy restrictions, but said the agency routinely denies travelers from entering the country on 60 different grounds. The agency noted it treats all travelers with integrity, respect, and professionalism. That is dripping with irony. Mooney disagreed and said she was kept in a cold room at the border by CBP before being arrested by ICE, who placed her at the Otay Mesa Detention Center. "I was put in a cell and I had to sleep on a mat with no blanket, no pillow, with an aluminum foil wrapped over my body like a dead body for 2.5 days. Mooney said the food inside the Otay Mesa Detention Center was awful and claimed in the middle of the night she, along with a group of 30 other women, was rounded up to get transferred to a facility in Arizona. "We were up for 24 hours wrapped in chains," she said. Core Civic, the private company that owns the Otay Mesa facility, said it provided 3 nutritious, in quotation marks, meals a day to inmates. Menus are reviewed and approved on a regular basis by a registered dietitian to ensure appropriate nutrition is provided to those entrusted to our care, said Brian
The
Todd,
menu,
a Core Civic spokesman.
the menu is reviewed. How about the food?
Yeah. The Arizona facility where Mooney is now being housed didn't return a request for comment from Team 10. So Mooney said she has no idea when she will be released from detention. Her best friend, Brittany Kors, is trying to put pressure on the Canadian government to intervene. "I just feel like there has to be more that they can do to this, more that they can do this." That doesn't even make sense. "I just feel like there has to be more they can do this. This can't be right. It can't be allowed to happen," Kors said in an interview from Vancouver. Kors contacted Team 10 after seeing our reporting on 2 German citizens who were detained by CBP and then arrested by ICE after trying to enter the San Diego border. "This just seems like it's such a waste of taxpayer dollars," said Kors, who was surprised to learn her friend was being held in a for-profit private detention center. Who owns that for-profit private detention center? Who's invested in it? I'd like to know. Kors has been contacting immigration attorneys and trying to round up support for Mooney from Canada. "I just feel really helpless. We don't know what the next steps are. We don't even know the reason why they're holding her there." San Diego immigration attorney Andrew Nider said there's been an anecdotal increase in the number of non-U.S. citizens being detained by immigration authorities. "Many of the detentions are for reasons that up until a couple of months ago would not have resulted in a person's detention because CBP and ICE have many other options at their disposal. They do not need to detain people." Team 10 asked ICE for comment on Tuesday, but by Wednesday afternoon, the agency had not responded. The Canadian government said it is aware of Mooney's detention and is working to gather more information from authorities in Arizona. Every country or territory decides who can enter or exit through its borders. The government of Canada cannot intervene on behalf of Canadian citizens with regard to the entry and exit requirements of another country, said Global Affairs Canada spokeswoman Brittany Fletcher. And that is correct.
Yes, but that's not what happened here. This was she was trying to enter.
Correct.
And she was told her visa was not okay, and she was not offered a part. She was tried to enter, and then she was taken in.
Yeah.
And not given an option to go back to Mexico to try to find another way, because she could have taken a flight directly to Canada and just come home.
This is
and then solve the visa issues over here. But they essentially kidnapped her.
Well, see, here's what's going to happen with this story. This story will get bigger because now, bear with me for a moment while I spin a yarn. You see, people are detained all the time. If you watch the television series Mo on Netflix, it's about a comedian living in Texas, and he grew up in Texas, but he's Palestinian. So he's stateless. He doesn't have citizenship anywhere. And he ends up in Mexico by being kidnapped. And then he has to fight to try to get back to the States, but he doesn't have any papers. And it's a very complicated situation. And they show him in the private for-profit detention centers. And what she described is exactly what takes place in this program. Here's where it's going to get a bigger spotlight. She's a very attractive white woman from Canada. Like it or not, that will get you a spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
It's not right that people of color, men, women, rainbow folks don't get the same spotlight. So in a weird way, in a very weird way, in a strange universe, this is happening. I don't want to use the word good, but for good will come out of this. Hopefully good will come out of this, because when you put a cis, het, white, attractive woman through the ringer like this, and she's not a Karen, the focus, the spotlight will get bigger. They're trying to suppress it in the news right now.
Well, and here's the thing now. We're in negotiations. And as far as we can tell, we have a Michael situation going on.
We are, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's taking place. Same thing all over again.
This, I would be surprised when an eventual first conversation between Mr. Carney, again, assuming he becomes prime minister.
Well, he's being sworn in tomorrow.
He will be prime minister, but I mean, post-election, because there is so much he does have full powers, but there is also with legitimacy so much he can do before an election that might be. I think Canadians are prepared to give him a lot of leeway, though, against Trump, particularly if a Canadian citizen's being detained. But I have no doubt that subject would come up in conversation.
Oh, yes.
At some point, if the Canadian government's aware. So, when I say everything's coming up Carney, yesterday, of course, we talked about him winning the Liberal leadership, and with a margin larger than anybody even expected. So there seems to be this overall mood in the country, at least among the progressive movement, or if not even, I don't even think you need to be progressive. You just have to be like not PeePee style conservative type of movement. Nope, there you go. So that's Jasmine Mooney there, the picture of her. So
yeah, for those who can't see,
can say.
Yeah, this is going to raise holy hell, and I think we should beat this one to death. Let people know. Spread the word. Spread the word. Let people know this is what's taking place. And again, because she is who she is, this will get a much bigger spotlight.
Yep. So Carney wins with a margin that nobody saw coming. He's been in a situation like Trudeau is in a way that he can write his own ticket, Because if everybody thought that the party was going to go into the dumps and he comes and saves it, well, then, I mean, to whom does he owe anything? Much like Trudeau. So he's going to have the opportunity to be rather independent, which is kind of interesting as well. And he had his speech, which we will show and we will talk about. But yes, he's already hard at work. So the first thing that we mentioned is that we talked about polls, first of all, and how the aggregate numbers that we had up until date were testing for a generic Liberal Party or Liberal Party led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Numbers we're going to start that are going to come out over the next week or two are going to start factoring in with Carney. A lot of people are expecting to see a bump there. We talked about the Leger poll recapturing, showing in one reporting period a 13-point closing of the gap, and that the Liberals and the Conservatives are tied. We showed you the Polara information showing that even before the leadership vote, Canadians were considering both Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney better to deal with Trump and better on the economy than Pierre Pomme, but Carney by a way larger margin. We also showed that polling data was showing that of the two candidates, Carney and Poilievre's views on him are really, really baked in, whereas Carney has a lot of room to grow, also room to disappoint. They go together, but room to grow, particularly on metrics that are such, if you get the sense that if you feel that Carney cares like people like you, that he's not just a cold elite banker, that he can actually relate to you in some way, he has a lot of ways to go up. And I don't think he's going to have too much trouble with that in particular. So that's not looking good. So all this good news for Carney, terrible news for Pierre with polling and whatnot. Then we get this trade stuff going on. And Carney, before we get to the trade stuff, sorry, I forgot there's one other element. Pierre had also been trying to, and the Conservatives had tried to be making a big deal out of disclosure and Carney's honesty. Well, Carney, as I think we mentioned yesterday, has already, 4 months before he is legally required to, divested everything he owns other than personal real estate, in other words, the place where he lives right now, to a blind trust. Now, I look back at old clips on February 26th at the leaders' debate. In the scrum afterwards, he was specifically asked about that. And he says, well, listen, there's a lot of things going on. I sat for the security clearance and all that kind of stuff and filed all the papers and sat for the interview and did that. He had done all that before the leaders' debate because apparently that was a requirement of the Liberal Party. That if you're going to run for the leadership, then you need to do all this stuff to apply for your top secret security clearance now. So he did that. And then on that day, he said, at the earliest opportunity after the vote, I am going to make sure that this is done. Well, the vote was on Sunday, and by Monday morning, it was announced that it was done. He said most people, when they hear that, first up, okay, they'll do it within the first week or two, or whatnot, or the first month. He did it the first day. When he said first opportunity, he literally meant it. And it would appear, because Mr. Carney, now this could be one or two reasons. No, it has to be before because he hasn't been sworn in yet. It would seem that Mr. Carney, because he has already had 5 eyes clearance and had already applied for his clearance, I would assume, I'm not an expert on this, that they wouldn't have to redo the whole security check from the beginning, but basically maybe from the last time he had job that required 5 eyes clearance. So when he was Bank of England, so they'd only have to look at his life from the time he left the governorship of the Bank of England until now, which is a much shorter security check than if you have to do it from scratch. And it would seem, because I was having a conversation with someone one day and we're going like, well, do we know if he has it yet? And I was sitting there and I'm thinking, well, actually, you know what? That's a good question, because I know he sat for it and he did everything, but I didn't hear anything out there explicitly saying that he has received it yet or has not received it yet. Right? Because it has to be updated. Well, then it turns out yesterday I saw, but it's from a few days ago on CTV, said that Mark Carney has already started receiving security briefings. So it must have already, because he hasn't been sworn in yet. If he had been sworn in yet, he gets it automatically as prime minister, because that's the way our rules are. But if he's already getting security briefings and he has not yet been sworn in, that would mean he's passed.
Oh, yes.
So updated March 11th from CTV, Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney is spending part of his second day as Liberal leader meeting with the heads of Canada's national security agencies, CTV News has learned. According to a source close to Carney, he is receiving national security briefings days ahead of his anticipated swearing in as Prime Minister of Canada. Posts on social media show Carney also had meetings in the Ottawa area with Canada's ambassador to the United States, Kristen Hillman, the fentanyl point person. I'm not going to use the CZAR word unless I'm speaking about Americans talking about it. Kevin Brosseau and the chief of the Defense Staff, General Jenny Carignan. And I've seen one or two interviews with Kevin Brosseau. He presents extremely well.
Oh, okay.
And really knows his stuff. Former RCMP. We're talking about drugs. Knows his stuff. Very calm and poised and clear. They would have been hard pressed, based on first impressions at least, picking someone better. So the person under Kevin Brosseau understands the assignment based on the few interviews I've heard and seen. And then he's got pictures of him meeting with Christian Hillman all over his social media and with Kevin Brosseau all over social media. It comes as spokesperson for Carney tells CTV News the former governor of the Banks of England and Canada has divested all his assets into a blind trust. Quote, the signed blind trust document was sent to the ethics commissioner when the results were announced yesterday, Sunday evening. So he had all the documentation ready. Then you won. Ship it to the ethics commissioner right away. It's very Jack Smith-ish. Special counselor, when he said, you got to the 26th to file, you're going to have to the 26th to file this briefing. To go, like, I got it right here. If you want to fast forward, I don't need to wait till the 26th. We can go now. You want to go now? We can go now. I have the briefing here. I knew you were going to ask me that, so I pre-planned. I pre-prepared. Let's do this. LFG. So yeah, he had it all ready. So while everybody was asking him, and while Pierre Pomme was saying he'll never do it, he was actually preparing all the documentation for it to be done. But Carney didn't say, I'm taking care of it. He just did it and then dropped the bomb. Boom. I like him. I like him a lot. Carney's team has been working with the ethics commissioner, quote, and we have derived a full and robust conflict of interest management plan, the spokesperson told. So the plan that he did was devised with the help of the ethics commissioner, because they consulted while they did it. They didn't just do it and present it to the ethics commissioner. They actually said, hey, we need to do this. Ethics commissioner, can you give us our best advice on how it is that we go about it? Yes. Okay, great. We'll integrate that. Thank you. Turns out, what were the odds that a central banker, a man who would definitely love very clear and very laid out processes for things, all things, have an ability to follow a well laid out process and make the timelines work for him? What were the odds that someone that has the discipline and the rigor required to be a central banker would have the discipline and rigor to make sure that all his financial paperwork was prepared at the first possible moment?
This comment here from PNC Bio, I think hits it on the head. Mark Carney prepares like a lawyer. You know the answer to what you were going to ask, do?
Uh-huh.
He does.
He does. A spokesperson for the
Maybe
Office of
that's
the
why he's
Conflict,
been so successful for so much of his life. He's well prepared.
right? A spokesperson, and he literally says, "I think everything in my life has prepared me for this so far." A spokesperson from the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner confirmed to CTV News they have been in touch with Carney's team. Carney will only become subject to the Conflict of Interest Act once he has been appointed Prime Minister by the Governor General acting on the advice of Cabinet. But he's decided to be bound by it before then. Under the Act, Mr. Carney will have 60 days to confidentially disclose the Commissioner all his assets, liabilities, income, and outside activities, but it's already done. Michael Robel, Communications Officer for the Office of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, said in a statement to CTV News, quote, "The Commissioner's office will review that information and advise him on how to arrange his affairs to avoid conflicts of interest and comply with the Act." According to a backgrounder document from the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, public office holders are prohibited from holding controlled assets. Those assets include stocks and bonds whose value could be directly or indirectly affected by government policies or decisions. I'm pretty sure Pierre Poilievre has some stocks and bonds.
Perhaps.
Has Poilievre personally divested of everything?
Oh, God, no.
Because he too aspires to be Prime Minister one day. And I mean, if you had to divest of everything just to be the leader, while you were a candidate for being a leader, if you had to come clear with all that, then what's Pierre's excuse? Because he's been party leader for over 2 years. Oh, conservatives, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And juxtaposition might put you in a really interesting corner. Because now liberals get to go all across the country asking when Pierre will disclose all of his personal assets. And they get to do it not from, I expect it from you, but I'm not prepared to do it myself, but from, I've already done it myself, punk. Your turn to step up. And if you don't, I guess we need to ask why. Right? Oh, what a shame. A little more noise injected into your campaign. Such a shame. You hate to see it. And now you've got it on your personal disclosures and your security clearance because Carney's already receiving briefings, which means he's obtained it because he didn't get it automatically by virtue of being Prime Minister because he's not Prime Minister yet. He has not been sworn in. So again, Pierre, your turn. And as we mentioned yesterday, this disclosure you don't even have to make publicly, only to the authorities. What's the matter, Pierre? Law and Order conservative doesn't want to disclose stuff about himself to the authorities?
And here's an interesting story about Mark Carney. From National News Watch, incoming Prime Minister Mark Carney says he has put his assets in a blind trust. How much you want to bet Pierre Poilievre will not do anything of the sort? Maybe that's why he won't get a security clearance?
Also from the person at the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner's Office, within 120 days after their appointment, the reporting public office holders must divest any control assets that they hold, either by selling them in an arm's length transaction or by placing them in a blind trust for as long as they remain in public office or until the trust assets have been depleted, says the document on the Commissioner's website. Last week, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre proposed changes to the Conflict of Interest Act. Gee, I'm old enough to remember Stephen Harper doing that. And then conservative senators having big difficulty living by them. Afterwards, yeah, I remember that. Leader Pierre Poilievre proposed changes to the Conflict of Interest Act, if elected, that would require leadership candidates to disclose their finances within 30 days of becoming an official candidate and make them available to Canadians within 60 days. Yes, of course, to close their finances, but how about putting them in a blind trust? Pierre?
Yeah, he's not going to do that.
Mark Carney went further than what your bill
suggests. Yeah.
Your stunt bill to try to corner him, make him look bad, requires.
See, he's trying to come up with a gotcha moment, but the thing is, Carney is too smart for that. He'll go, no, here's everything. Here's my hands. Here's my cards. We're playing open poker, not blind poker. Here's my hand. Here's what I have. Here's everything.
If
All the
you've got nothing,
skeletons, everything. You take all the power away from somebody.
exactly. If you've got
When you
nothing to
do
hide,
that.
you take away all the power. And if you tell the truth, you never have to keep track of what you said
Pretty simple.
because
Right?
it will always come out the same way because it's always the truth.
Pretty simple. Christy Clark couldn't learn that.
Mm. Pierre's having problems.
I
So
think.
the polls are not good, and Carney's receiving security briefings that Pierre cannot or will not, or at this point, I think it's a distinction without a meaningful difference,
Mhm.
whether it's unable or unwilling at the moment. And he's meeting with national security people, and he's met with the Canadian ambassador, and he's having meetings preparing people to go to other meetings to discuss trade stuff. And then yesterday, Mr. Grizzly, I just sent you a clip on that. He was in Hamilton because now all of a sudden we are talking about aluminum and steel tariffs. So what better place in the 905?
Don't have the clip.
Don't have the clip?
No.
Okay. What better place in the 905 to be if we're talking about steel than Hamilton?
Oh yeah, Steel Town. I know.
Yeah.
That is the Steel Town.
All right. There we go. Sorry. Yep. It
Sat in the
went
outbox.
through, sat in the outbox again.
Yeah, that happens.
Because I sent it like 15 minutes ago.
I got it now.
Got it now. So he's in Steeltown. The elite banker, allegedly,
Hmm.
who can't relate
Yeah.
to everyday people and won't be able to relate to everyday people and is probably so technocratic and he has no humanity, goes to Steel Town, to a steel plant where there are
Well,
steel workers.
and here's the thing that they want you to think he's this elitist banker, blah, blah, blah. He came from the Northwest Territories. He grew up in Edmonton. His parents were working class.
Mhm.
He literally did pull himself up by his bootstraps.
Mhm.
He literally did that.
He's
So he knows
literally
what
a
it's like to
conservative.
actually work.
He's literally a conservative success story, and
He
conservatives
is.
hate that he's running for liberals.
Yeah.
They loved
Well,
him when
it's just
they thought he was one of theirs.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and now they hate him and say he's got nothing but slogans. From Slogan Boy himself. That is
Yes.
the lack of self-awareness.
And
Lack
stealing,
of self-awareness.
and he's stealing Jim Flaherty's valor. Cue clips of Jim Flaherty praising Mark Carney.
Yeah, yeah. Come on. Look at this. This is from just yesterday. Yesterday? Was
Just
it? Yeah, I
yesterday.
think it's from yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
With respect to the United States and the relationship there. I respect President Trump's concern for American workers and American families. We respect his concern about fentanyl. It's an issue for us here in Canada as well. And that's why the Canadian government moved very quickly with a comprehensive response that has had a huge impact in terms of controlling that issue and getting on top of that issue much better. We are ready to sit down with the Americans, with the U.S. government. I'm ready to sit down with President Trump at the appropriate time under a position where there's respect for Canadian sovereignty, and we're working for a common approach, a much more comprehensive approach for trade. We're all going to be better off. Workers here in Canada, which is our concern, workers in America, which is his concern. We are all going to be better off when the greatest economic and security partnership in the world is renewed, relaunched. That's possible. You have a new government, but the same commitment, and that commitment is built rock solid on the commitment you have all made here at Dofasco.
Was that Karina Gould over his right
I think
shoulder?
so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you notice? I'm going to back it up for a
It's
second.
from Burlington,
here.
which is close by, right?
Yes, it's not far. Yeah, I mean, it's close. Notice this little, oh, you can't see it there. Hang on, I'll just blow it up so we can see it properly. You notice that he has a Canadian flag pin on his left lapel, just
okay.
below his collar.
Okay.
That's strategic, I guarantee you.
Yes. Yeah, they conservatives like to make a big deal about that.
Yeah. So I think
So,
that's really all I had to say. The rest of it is just
yeah. So, but did you catch the very, 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 very subtle domination move on Donald Trump in that?
Sorry, no, I didn't. I was trying to monitor some other stuff here.
We are ready to sit down with the Americans at the appropriate time. This is a shout out to the fact that he is still not prime minister. And we only have one prime minister at the time. So now is not the time to meet with the president. I'm not the prime minister yet. So at the appropriate time, under a position where there is respect for Canadian sovereignty, and we're working for a much more comprehensive approach for trade. He put conditions.
Mm-hmm.
We are ready to sit down with the Americans so long as these two conditions are met. We are both clear that there is respect for Canadian sovereignty, right? And we are working together on a much more comprehensive approach for trade rather than these one-offs every 30 days, right? This is a domination move. And Carney made it first. Because Trump hasn't had a chance to talk about him yet. This sounds to me like no talkie with me until you agree to shut the fuck up about that first state shit. And here's the thing is that until IQ 47 and Mark Carney are actually in a room together, anything IQ 47 says about Carney is just whatever.
Well,
right?
I'm just reading.
And hold on, just to finish this point. And IQ 47, because he knows everything about branding and TV and whatnot, well, he loves celebrity. He knows that Mark Carney's a big global celebrity. And Trump respects celebrity.
Yes.
And given that Trump really respects celebrity and understands TV, Trump knows that that first moment on camera with a big new global celebrity, because Mark Carney is respected by everyone around the world. You know, Canada, we would think would lose its chief status as the dean of the global nations. And in terms of longevity and time when Mark Carney, yes, but in terms of stature, gotta be a lot of people still looking to Canada now, as opposed to going to the bottom of the pile. So he knows, Donald Trump knows that that first moment on camera with a global celebrity who is now the Prime Minister of Canada will be a very, very, very big moment for him that will be carried all around the world. And he likes getting those moments. He wants that moment. He wants it now. So you don't get to eat that first marshmallow until you see these two marshmallows on the plate and you wait for 10 minutes and agree to go to a camera somehow and say publicly that Canada will never be a 51st state.
The Americans seem to think
or else we don't talk. You don't get that first moment with me.
The Americans seem to think they hold all the cards here, and what they fail to realize, probably through, and I say they, a certain percentage of the population and the Republican Party does not realize. They don't hold all the cards. They like to say that they're the greatest nation on earth, except that they only lead the world in 3 categories. You know what those 3 categories are?
Do tell us.
Number of incarcerated individuals,
Right.
number of people who believe in angels,
Mm-hmm.
and military spending. They spend more than 27 nations, 30 nations combined, 27 of which are allies.
Mm-hmm.
They lead the world in 3 categories, and that's it. It is not the greatest nation on earth. It never has been. It was once a great nation. It has been completely destroyed in less than 53 days, and they keep beating it down day by day by day by day. An American fella saying here, the trade war you are fighting is going to crush your economy. You don't have the cards. Why not try negotiating with Trump? To which I respond, why would we negotiate with the guy who signed the greatest deal ever, in quotes, in 2018, only to tear it up in 2025 because he didn't like it anymore and said it's the worst deal ever? Who signed this? You did, shithead.
Who made those terrible energy deals?
You did.
You did.
I've got something I want to read into the record here. This is from.
Who would allow energy to be run through a country? You dumbass. You.
This is from at Skyline Report. I'm going to read this in. And I'm going to read it word for word on what he wrote because it's fascinating. All right, buckle up, because Canada's about to shove a massive financial middle finger right up Donald Trump's ass, and the dumb fuck hasn't got a clue about the shitstorm he's about to wade through. While he's busy strutting around like some tariff-toting genius, Canada's pulling a slick move, issuing U.S. dollar-denominated bonds. Yep. And it's going to fuck him sideways in ways his tiny brain can't even fathom. Let's break this down so even the average reader can see how this orange-haired dipshit's about to get schooled. First off, Canada's stacking up U.S. dollars like a goddamn squirrel hoarding nuts for the winter. Why? Leverage, bitches. With a fat pile of greenbacks, they can stare down Trump's trade tantrums and say, go ahead, slap your shitty 25% tariffs on us. See if we blink. It's like Canada's building a financial Kevlar vest while Trump's swinging a foam bat, thinking he's going to knock him out. Good luck with that, you moron. Then there's the currency game. Trump thinks he can destabilize Canada's economy with his big, bad economic threats. But by snagging U.S. dollars, Canada's basically saying, nice try, asshole. This move keeps their loony from tanking harder than a drunk guy at a bar, making Trump's tariffs about as effective as a wet fart in a hurricane. They're prepping to ride out his bullshit without breaking a sweat. And the balls on this move. Holy shit. Issuing these bonds is Canada planting a flag in the ground screaming, we ain't your bitch, Donnie. It's a neon sign flashing, fuck you, across the border, showing they're ready for a long, ugly trade war. Trump's probably too busy tweeting about his huge hands to notice. But this signal of resolve means Canada's not folding like a cheap lawn chair. Nope. They're digging in, and it's going to make his little trade crusade a hell of a lot tougher. Yep. Now, here's where it gets juicy for the U.S. And by juicy, I mean a total clusterfuck. Picture this. You're an American schmuck buying a car. Thanks to Trump's genius tariffs, the parts from Canada now cost more. So your shiny new ride jacks up by a couple grand. That's real money, not monopoly bucks. Businesses get screwed too. Supply chains turn into a shit show. Prices climb, and suddenly everyone's pissed at the guy in the White House. Meanwhile, Canada's sitting on a pile of U.S. dollars propping up their economy like it's no big deal. Trump's plan to choke them out? Fucking toast. Let's use a clear example to hammer this home. Imagine Trump's a bully trying to shake Canada down for lunch money. He's all, give me your cash or I'll punch you with tariffs. Old Don thinks he's got the upper hand, but Canada's like, hold up, I just hit the ATM. Now I've got my own stack of your dollars, motherfucker. Suddenly, the bully's fists don't hit as hard, and Canada's walking away eating a sandwich while Trump's left kicking dirt, clueless about why his plan's gone to shit. In short, Canada's bond play is a masterstroke that's going to make Trump's trade war wet dream a nightmare. He's too busy jerking off to his own reflection to see how this strengthens Canada's hand, fucks with his leverage, and drags the U.S. into a longer, costlier fight. By the time this dumbass figures it out, he'll be ass-deep in economic quicksand, and Canada will be sipping maple syrup, laughing their asses off. Checkmate, you tariff-tossing twat. I mean, I left all the expletives in because I think it drives it home. But here's something else I want to read into the Hansard, if you will, our Hansard. Just thinking out loud. This is from Mike Morris. Just thinking out loud here, so to speak. Canada sells more toilet paper by far to the USA than any other country. Well,
they're out there saying that we're going to have a toilet paper crisis. The softwood lumber stuff was like, again, yes, United States makes more toilet paper than it can use. It's a net exporter, but you also buy. We also.
Well, we exported in 2023. We exported 96,981,600 kilos of toilet paper. Kilos. That's like 200 million pounds.
The toilet paper wars
of toilet paper. So here's where it's interesting. This is the thing is Trump says his 25% tariff on everything entering the USA from Canada will be back on April 2nd. So Americans would be paying 25% more to wipe their ass. And
Thanks,
my suggestion, we print Trump's face on every square of every roll that we export to the United States. I have friends who have already bought rolls of it and have posted photos of it online. I'm like, if we're exporting almost 97 million kilos, let's just do it.
Let's do it. According to BNN Bloomberg, based on what you were talking about, Mr. Grizzly, U.S. investors shrugged off worries about an intensifying trade war and bought U.S. $3.5 billion worth of bonds from the Canadian government at typical valuations on Tuesday. Typical valuations as well. We didn't have to do anything special. Canada sold notes maturing in 5 years at a yield of 0.11 percentage point or 11 basis points above U.S. Treasuries, a risk premium similar to past deals. A year ago, Canada sold $3 billion of 5-year notes at a yield of 10 basis points above Treasuries. The pricing underscores how investors are watching the U.S.-Canada trade war, but not necessarily expecting it to hit Canada's finances hard. The Canadian government is facing escalating tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump while reshaping itself. Even if Canada undergoes a moderate economic slowdown and the federal government spends more to support businesses or workers, its debt-to-gross domestic product ratio, debt-to-GDP ratio, would be among the lowest in the G7 group, according to Dominique Lapointe, Senior Director in Macro Strategy at Manulife Investments Management. Quote, in other words, there is still fiscal space to absorb a slowdown, and investors should not be wary of Canada's creditworthiness at the moment, Lapointe said. Canada's Liberal Party has chosen Mark Carney to replace Justin Trudeau as its leader, but a federal election waits, and the government hasn't released plans for a federal budget that typically comes out in the spring, and there probably won't be one. In terms of coming out spring, there'll be an election that will come out. The budget will come after. If provincial budgets are any guide, Canada is facing a deeper deficit and growing funding needs. U.S. tariffs risk sending the Canadian economy into a recession while devastating specific industries, including car making, mining, and agriculture. That has led to wider corporate bond spreads in Canada. As a sovereign issuer, Canada has maintained the highest credit ratings available from S&P Global Ratings and Moody's Ratings since 2002. 23 years and counting, and has the second highest rating from Fitch Ratings. The U.S. in contrast has the second highest rating at S&P and Fitch, and the highest at Moody's. So financially, we're stable, and people have absolutely no problem buying our bonds. And this is following according to the Government of Canada itself. In Budget 2024, the Government of Canada reiterated its commitment to maintain liquid foreign reserves at or above 3% of nominal gross domestic product. So to support this commitment, the Government of Canada today, that's on March 10th, announced its intention to launch a US dollar-denominated global bond tomorrow, March 11th, subject to market conditions. Launching a global bond provides funds to supplement and diversify Canada's liquid foreign reserves, which serve as a source of prudential liquidity and help promote orderly market conditions for the Canadian dollar in foreign exchange markets. The US dollar global bond will further strengthen the stability of Canada's foreign currency reserves while meeting investors' demand for high-quality assets backed by Canada's AAA credit ratings from most major credit rating agencies. People are still willing to buy our bonds, and especially if we sell them in US dollars. Wow.
Interesting.
Interesting. So Carney also has that supporting him underneath. So he's got polls. He's got a conservative party that can't seem to, and a leader that can't seem to pivot, and all their attempts are failing. He's disclosed on his financial assets. He's obtained his security clearance. He's made a major power move on Donald Trump. He's met with national security. He's actually, whoever's planning this campaign, has scheduled him to be at that steel place in Hamilton yesterday. Definitely doing very, very good work, benefiting from definite planning. And you're just like you said, and as PNC, was it PNC Bio said, he prepares like a lawyer. Again, as I mentioned, this would seem that it would be the place where a combination of Carney's pragmatism, because he keeps on saying, I'm not a politician, I'm a pragmatist, and banker-like love for process, as I mentioned before, will be an asset, because he will very much insist that Canada will do nothing unless through a proper process, which has been established first, and will cease cooperating at any moment the United States veers off the prior agreed to process. And if we do that and stick rigidly to that framework, as we have stuck rigidly to the if you do X with tariffs, we will do Y, Trump's in for a really rough ride, because that means we can walk away from the table at any frickin' time.
Yep.
Well, nope. Heard you on Face the Nation talking about that 51st state again. I think we're going to walk away at the table for the next month or two. See what happens. We told you. You need this win. We don't need a new deal here in Canada.
No, we don't.
We just negotiate the deal. But you need a win.
This is from
and you
yesterday.
can't get a win if we don't show up at the table.
This is from yesterday.
It's not going to be a tough battle. In my opinion, not going to be tough. Just like when Ontario charged us, everybody said, oh, they just charged. I said, this will be won in 1 hour. And they announced what we were going to do, and they withdrew their little threat. And what they don't say in Canada is that 270%, have you ever heard that? We have tariffs on dairy products from Canada of 270%.
Look how quickly pivoted away.
Going up to 400%. You never hear that. Canada's absolutely one of the worst. And we, when I say worst in terms of charging tariffs. The dairy products, they charge our farmers 240, 250, 270, and 400%.
It's 390, not 400, asshole.
Dairy product. And we charge them like peanuts. You know why?
And it doesn't get applied immediately.
It properly run for so many years. I had that all settled in my first term.
You signed the deal.
Biden, you know, he let everything go to hell. It's not going to be a tough.
No.
He signed that deal.
But that's what he's saying. He said, I signed it, had it all settled, then it all went to hell. No, it didn't go. It's exactly, everything's exactly the same. So, but here you will notice a couple of things, right? When I told you Trump's image of himself, I said it would last an hour. Yeah, it lasted an hour because you told Howard Lutnick to get on the phone and call him and ask him, please take them off. And Doug Ford said, well, then let's have a meeting to discuss it. And Lutnick said, yes. That's the part you forgot to tell Trump. Their little threat. Yeah, so little that you had us begging. You were begging us to remove it.
Yeah.
And we got the meeting that we asked of you. And if that meeting doesn't go well, I have a feeling that 25% surcharge will come back.
Well, and you know that Trump can't attend the G7 meeting, right? So he's sending Marco Rubio in his stead because he's a felon. He can't cross the border.
This one is not one for him, though. Apparently, it's a meeting of foreign ministers specifically.
Oh, okay. Which is why Rubio's attending.
Ministers.
Okay.
Yes, which is why Rubio's attending. But it's another reason. If it was for Trump, he wouldn't want to go. Is because it's being held in the Charlevoix again. And last time when Trump went to Charlevoix.
Yeah, it didn't work out well for him.
It didn't work out well for him either.
Here's Marco Rubio about the G7, this new meeting, and this is interesting. Listen to what he has to say.
Should become the 51st state from an economic standpoint. He says if they became the 51st state, we wouldn't have to worry about the border and fentanyl coming across because now we would be able to manage that. He's made an argument that it's their interest to do so. Obviously, the Canadians don't agree, apparently. But do you agree with this? Should they be? Is that what we're going to discuss that? Becoming the 51st? Well, that's not what we're going to discuss at the G7. That's not what we're going to be discussing in our trip here. So they're the host nation, and I mean, we have a lot of other things we work on together. We defend North America through NORAD and the airspace of our continent together. So not to mention the issues of Ukraine and other commonalities. So we're going to be focused in the G7 on all of those things. That's what the meeting is about. It is not a meeting about how we're going to take over.
Okay. So, and in the previous clip, if you got that Trump clip again, if you can play it about halfway out, Trump also says something, right? So Marco Rubio is in Canada. Oh, no, we won't be talking about, well, maybe because there's 6 against 1, number one, might have something to do with that. And you certainly don't want to do that on our home turf, right?
Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can find
Because
the clip.
our press will be there. But when Trump was talking about that little meeting, he said something afterwards. There's a couple of words and I can't remember them off the top of my head, which is why I'm asking you to find the clip again, sir.
I'm looking for it here.
That gave the hint that he has gotten the message somewhat. Marco Rubio certainly seems to have gotten the message that this is not particularly fertile ground for the Americans at this time, particularly not while in Canadian soil, of course. But yeah.
I'll replay it from the 45-second mark because I think that might be what you're talking about. I could be incorrect. We might have to watch the whole thing again.
I think you're right.
Think of that for dairy product. And we charge them like peanuts. You know why? Because we've been improperly, just like when on up to 400%. You never hear that. Canada's absolutely one of the worst.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
270%. Have you ever heard that? We have tariffs on dairy products from Canada of 270%, going up to 400%. You never hear that. Canada's absolutely one of the worst. And we, when I say worst in terms of charging tariffs.
Right there.
Their dairy products, they charge our farmers 200.
What am I missing?
The one. Canada is the worst. Everybody's worse. She's a horse face. Everything's Canada's the worst. What I mean, imposing tariffs, though. Not Canada is the worst.
Right.
Just when it comes to imposing. Notice how he felt he needed to make that clarification.
Well, and his statement here, Trump, the EU was set up to take advantage of the United States. What the
Okay, here's the other thing with this guy, his narrative, right? Everybody's been ripping us off all this time. Then how are you still the most successful country in the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If everybody was ripping you off constantly all the time, that is inconsistent with being the world's most exceptional country. You should be a basket case if everybody was ripping you off all the time.
Exceptional?
I'm talking about what they believe about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You cannot believe that you are the most exceptional country in the world and that you're being ripped off all the time by everyone. And if you were being ripped off by everyone all the time, you wouldn't have the means to be exceptional. Like, none of this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So all of this brings us to Mark Carney's acceptance speech. I don't know if you happen to have it handy, Mr. Grizzly.
Do I have his acceptance speech handy? No, I do not, but I'll dig it up. Just keep rolling. I'll find it. Give me a minute.
All right. So this is happening, right? And we'll go into Mark Carney's acceptance speech. But another bit of news that we've been getting also on the sort of economic front was the job numbers that came in. Now, for Canada, the job numbers came in under expectations. I think it was we were expecting 20,000 new jobs, and it was way lower than that. There was a 51,000 job increase in certain services, but that seems to be all people that were getting together to pre-order a lot of things for the United States before tariffs were looking to come into place. So a lot of people that stocked up on things, and they needed extra staff to do that. So we might lose some of that in the following numbers. But our numbers weren't as great, but our previous numbers were way better than expected. In the United States, their numbers were better than expected this time around. So when we got the lower job numbers, people were saying, well, that was the last data point that was coming in before the Bank of Canada was going to make their interest rate announcement, which they made yesterday. And it would indicate that it was all it increased the odds that there would be an interest rate cut. And the cut did happen. The Bank of Canada did give us a cut of 0.25%, but seems to indicate that maybe more cuts might be a little slower in coming. And the Bank of Canada, Governor Tiff Macklem, made the point of making it very, very clear that while the bank is able to do a couple of things here and there to support the economy, the bank has absolutely no levers to pull with regard to dealing with a trade war, especially if it gets long and protracted. Okay.
Are you referring to his speech at the leadership convention? Is that the one you want? Yeah, okay, I have that here. Just give me a second and I will pull it up.
Now, again, the criticism from this speech from a lot of them has been is that it's not really, really flashy and maybe it was a little too long here and there. But again, we are in a mode of tone and countertone where there are a lot of people with big personalities. And as we had suggested a few weeks ago, that maybe Canada was just in the mood for someone, an adult, competent adult in the room who could keep things together and inspire confidence.
Connect him with Canadians and give Canadians a bit of an idea of who her dad is, because he is not known to many. But look at those numbers, 85.9% win for Mark Carney on the first round.
I think it's clear we should just skip a generation. Alors, bonsoir tout le monde. Wow. This room is strong. This room is Canada strong. Thank you, Cleo. Thank you, Cleo. And to my wife, Diana, our children, Cleo, Tess, Amelia, and Sasha. Without your support, I wouldn't be standing here. And like the Prime Minister, without your examples, I wouldn't have a purpose. And without your love, I wouldn't have the strength that I need for what lies ahead. Thank you. Monsieur Chrétien.
You still know how to energize the Liberal Party supporters like no one else can do it. You took courageous and historic decisions. You showed our allies that Canada will always stand up for what is just and fair. You're a source of inspiration for all Canadians across the land.
May I say that you inspired my family to become Liberals, including my father to run as a Liberal candidate in Alberta in the 1980s. Some elections are tougher than others. And you inspired me. You inspired me over the years. And now to have an opportunity to continue your tradition of fiscal responsibility, social justice, and international leadership. Prime Minister Trudeau, my time doesn't permit me to recognize all your accomplishments, so I'll speak at a higher level. You have combined strength and compassion every day as a fighter for Canada. You have led us through some of the hardest challenges that this nation has ever faced. Et en même temps, vous avez transformé
You have transformed Canada. You've transformed it. You've lifted hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty. by moving reconciliation forward and by defending freedom and democracy here and across the world. Prime Minister, I think I am speaking for everyone here when I thank you for your hard work. As Ella Grace said, your hard work, for your leadership, and for your service to our great country. I'd also like to thank you, Liberals, for having awarded me the greatest honor possible, which is to serve as your new leader. Thank you.
Okay, let's stop there.
Amen.
So there'll probably be a couple of extra thank yous here, but I just wanted to, the thank you parts of speeches are usually a little boring, right? But they're form, and you have to do them.
Yes.
Especially in a moment like this. And the reason I'm presenting it to you is sometimes these things are a little formulaic, or they're bland. You know, it's like insert thank yous here, thank you here, thank you here, thank you. He thanks his family and stops talking to prompt the audience, to give them some recognition. It's not a stumble. It's a deliberate move. He relates his experience to his family as being a source of inspiration for him, as the Prime Minister's family is to the Prime Minister. That's a class touch. He recognizes former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, gives him the honors that he is due, and uses that to explain how it is that he and his family became Liberals. And then mentions that he's going to follow that particular Prime Minister's tradition of fiscal responsibility, social justice, and international leadership. And then he gets to the current Prime Minister, commends him for having governed with strength and compassion. Goes through a list of accomplishments. And this has to be something that's very difficult for the Prime Minister, who wanted to continue, who was thinking of bringing Carney on as, his Minister of Finance, and he's sitting in this room, where he's being ushered off, and he is handling that with grace and poise, and everybody there is handling with grace and poise. There's been a lot of criticisms that say, they didn't really do much to send him off. Well, I mean, the Prime Minister didn't really have any intention to go off, number one, right? There wasn't a lot of time to plan a lot of stuff, even though it was going to be done, because this leadership thing was very quick. And it seems that at first that the Prime Minister wasn't even intending to be there. But the way that things have gone for him for the last 2 or 3 weeks, his personal approval numbers have gone up as well. And so that, you know what? So to sit here and hear those tributes cannot be an easy thing at that moment, because we all know that that's the last place he wanted to be.
Oh, yes.
He wanted to be on that stage instead.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But Carney touches all those bases, ticks all the boxes, but only doesn't do it formulaically, but adds personal touches to every single one, and uses those as very key moments to give some important information about who he is and how he will be.
Well, he exudes calm, steady hand, which is what we need right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's really needed, right? You need somebody who is calm, laid back, and chill as can be, who also plays the long game and is smarter than anybody else in any room he enters. But he doesn't hold that over your head.
Exactly.
He doesn't do that. because he can sit and have a beer at the tavern with the boys after a hockey game, just as well as sit with the head of the banks of any Federal Reserve in the world.
Right. Right. Let's keep going.
Just a second.
I'd like to thank the tens of thousands of volunteers across the country who have devoted themselves to rebuilding our country and to giving back hope to our country.
I pledge to you and to all Canadians that I will follow their example. I will work day and night with one purpose, which is to build a stronger Canada for everyone. But I will need help. I will need a lot of help. And so I'd like to thank Christia, Frank, and Karina for your energy and ideas and leadership that you have brought to this campaign. And I would like also to thank those ministers who remained in their posts to serve Canada directly during this time of great peril. And to the incredible group of Liberal MPs that we have. You are the voices for your communities, and you are the conscience of our party. Thank you for your service. Now, to give a sense of that service, I'm going to quote from a message that I and Christia and Karina and Frank, the four of us, received from someone called Bob Zettel. Now, Bob, full disclosure, I know the leader of the opposition's into full disclosure, so I'm going to full disclosure. Full disclosure, just want to get this on the table. Bob goes to my church. Actually, I go to Bob's church because he goes there a lot more frequently than I do. Anyways, point is, Bob wrote to the four candidates, and he said, I quote, "Right now, everyone sees the main threat as the Trump tariffs. But the far greater challenge will be, as it always has been, to foster unity and a sense of the common good. There are those who will seek power by dividing us." We'll get to that later on. And we being the people of Canada, we need you, my fellow candidates, myself, to continue in positions of leadership to promote a united Canada, a commitment to common good and the respect and the rule of law throughout the world. See, I quote Bob because right now all Canadians are being asked to serve in their own ways. We're all being called to stand up for each other and for the Canadian way of life. So let me ask you, who's ready? Pierre Pomme.
Is that
Who's ready to stand up for Canada with me?
Aaron O'Toole was, are you with me?
100%. Yes. Yes. Yes, Canada. Yes, Canada. The Liberal Party is united and strong and ready to fight to build an even better country. Now, I feel like everything in my life has helped prepare me for this.
Because we're good that this is a transition to something. So again, more thank yous, but look at all the people who thanks you again and who he thanks his fellow competitors. Right? But again, has more to say. about them, not just thank you like this. It's always important to put your thing in the game, and like, there's more. There's more personal.
Keep your
There's a
stick on
touch
the
there,
ice, eh?
right? The volunteers. It's just he gets everyone, but everyone has a specific touch, and then immediately says, as opposed to the mode of only I can fix it, I need your help. Recognizing all Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
That little bit was quite rallying, bringing everyone together. He also casually mentions that he goes to church.
Yeah, that was strategic, obviously, to appease a certain percentage of the population, and we'll leave it at that. I'm not going to wade into the weeds on that one.
Well, again, the last time I heard about a liberal leader going to church was Jean Chrétien.
Correct.
When he was saying, like this, yes, there's my church and there's what I do in the country, but as prime minister of the country, and he was talking about same-sex marriage specifically.
Yep.
It's like, sorry, I have to go in my church. There's what's going on in my church, but as prime minister of Canada, I have to govern for the whole country.
Correct. Yeah, I remember when he gave that interview, and I said, "Whoa, okay, I have a whole new respect for the man," because I did not like him when he was prime minister. There was a lot of things he did I completely disagreed with. Time being kind, you look back on them and go, okay, I can see why he did what he did. Tarbot's, the softwood lumber, like he was very good at the game. But when he gave that interview, that changed my perception of the man altogether. Because he really was in it for Canada, not for himself. I have to govern for all Canadians.
Yep, indeed. Let's keep going with Mr. Carney for a little bit.
1 second.
So we're at the point now where I mentioned that he talked about everything in his life preparing him for this moment.
2 months ago, I put up my hand to run for leader because I felt we needed big changes. But big changes guided by strong Canadian values. The values I learned at the dinner table from my parents, Bob and Verley, and my 3 siblings, Brenda, Sean, and Brian. Values that I learned at the hockey rinks of Edmonton from my coaches, such as Stormin Norman Lee. He exists. We didn't call him that to his face, by the way, but that was his. My parents were teachers, and they stressed the importance of hard work, of community, and of tolerance. My coaches were dedicated volunteers who taught me the importance of teamwork, ambition, and because it's Canada, humility. Des bonnes valeurs. Des bonnes valeurs.
The right values.
Des valeurs canadiennes.
Canadian values.
Je les ai emportés avec moi à l'université.
I took them with me to university, and I kept them close to me when I was called upon to manage crises here in Canada and across the world. These same values have guided me in my work to build strong economies. And today, I will use those values again as we face this most serious crisis in a generation.
Canadians know that new threats demand new ideas and a new plan. They know that new challenges demand new leadership. Canadians want positive leadership that will end division and help us build together. And to respond, my government will put into action our plan to build a stronger economy, to create new trading relationships with reliable trading partners, and to secure our borders.
A little shot across the bow.
Pour être clair,
Clear here. This will require change, big change. But I know that Canadians are ready. They've told me so across the country. People want change because they're concerned. They're concerned about the cost of living and the housing crisis as well. They're worried for the future of their young, their kids. They're worried about the future of Canada in the face of President Trump's threats and a more divided and dangerous world.
Now, I am a pragmatist above all. So when I see that something's that's not working, I will change it. So my government will immediately eliminate the divisive consumer carbon tax on families and farmers and small and medium-sized businesses. And we will stop the hike in the capital gains tax because we think builders should be incentivized for taking risks and rewarded when they succeed. Canada needs more of this type of change. Change that puts more money in people's pockets. Change that makes our companies more competitive. Change that builds the strongest economy in the G7. Now, there's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Yeah, Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't. I am proud of the response of Canadians who are making their voices heard and their wallets felt. I am grateful for how our provinces are stepping up to the fight, because when we are united, we are Canada strong. The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
Boom. Let's just stop here for a second.
And
removes all doubt about carbon tax.
Mm-hmm.
And we will stay in this until we get the respect. Very clear, very, very clear on these two things. Important to note. If you have any comments there, Mr. Grizzly, on that too.
No. Just
all right.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about food right now.
Yeah, it's impressive right now, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
Yep. All right, let's keep going for a little bit.
Keep going, and then I have a compare and contrast for you once he wraps up.
Okay.
And until they can join us in making credible and reliable commitments to free and fair trade. As Christa did. Yeah. Mm. And in the meantime, we will ensure that all the proceeds from our tariffs will be used to protect our workers.
Again, very clear, as opposed to Pierre, who wants to spread it out as a tax cut for everyone.
Les Américains veulent nos ressources.
They want our resources, our water, our land, our country even. Never. Think about that for a moment. That will destroy our way of life.
The Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country. Think about it. If they succeeded, they would destroy our way of life. In America, health care is a big business. In Canada, it is a right. Thank you. America is a melting pot. Canada is a mosaic.
Yes.
In the US, differences are not respected or recognized. First Nations aren't recognized, and the French language would never have any rights. The joie de vivre culture and the French language are part of our identity. And we must protect that. We must promote that as well. We'll never give them up for any trade agreement.
Look,
That's a big shout out to
Canada.
Quebec.
America is not Canada. And Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form. Look, we didn't ask for this fight. We didn't ask for this fight. But Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win.
Now, to Americans, I say to you, as in hockey, we will win.
Mais cette victoire,
but that victory won't be easy. We're facing the greatest crisis of our lifetimes. We have to do extraordinary things, and together we have to build things that we've never imagined we would have to do at a pace we would have never believed possible. And above all, we must place people above money. We have to unite to build the strongest, the fairest, and the freest country in the world.
Now, Donald Trump is trying to weaken our economy. But there's someone else who, if he succeeds, will weaken our economy. It's Pierre Pomme. Pierre Pomme just doesn't get it. He is the type of lifelong politician, and I've seen this type around the world, a lifelong politician who worships at the altar of the free market despite never having made a payroll himself. And now, in the face of President Trump's threats, Pierre Pomme still refuses to get his security clearance. At a time when our national security is under threat as it has never been before. At a time of immense economic insecurity, he would undermine the Bank of Canada. Monsieur Poilievre veut fermer Radio Canada.
Has called for the shutting down of CBC at a time when disinformation and foreign interference are on the march. He insults our mayors and ignores the First Nations when it's time to build. He intends to put an end to international aid when democracy and human rights are in danger across the world. And he will also allow our planet to burn.
Pierre Poilievre would let our planet burn. This is not leadership. It's ideology. It's ideology that betrays what we as Canadians value, each other. It's an ideology that also represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how the economy works. Now, unlike Pierre Poilievre, I've actually worked in the private sector. I know how the world works, and I know how it can be made to work better for all of us.
Let's just do a quick compare and contrast on that, shall we? I think we shall. I want you to take a special look at this. This is well, just have a look at this. Hang on, let me just blow it up here for you, and have a look at this.
Mr. Poilievre, what economic and diplomatic experience do you have to go up against Donald Trump?
Oh, quite a lot, actually.
Ellis call center agent, magazine columnist.
What economic and diplomatic experience do you have to go up against Donald Trump?
Oh, quite a lot, actually.
Landlord, career politician. That's his experience.
And that knowledge is especially useful now in the service of Canadians when we must build a new economy and create new trading relationships. Let me tell you something else that we know that Pierre Poilievre doesn't. We know that markets don't have values, people do. And we know as Liberals that it's our job to make markets, to make the economy work for all Canadians. These are the most powerful tool we've ever invented. They can find solutions to our greatest problems. And when the private sector, when the markets are governed well, they deliver great jobs and stronger growth faster than anything. But markets are also indifferent to human suffering, and they are blind to our greatest needs. So when they're not governed well, or not at all, they will deliver enormous wealth for the lucky few and hard times for the rest. And in this crisis, we must help those who are hit hardest by the American tariffs while we build our strength here at home. That's the right thing to do. That's the fair thing to do. That is the Canadian thing to do. That is what makes us strong. So Donald Trump thinks he can weaken us with his plan to divide and conquer. Pierre Poilievre's plan will leave us divided and ready to be conquered. Because a person who worships at the altar of Donald Trump will kneel before him, not stand up to him. Pierre Poilievre's slogans are not solutions. His anger is in action. His division is in strength. Division won't win a trade war. Division won't pay the rent or the mortgage. Division won't bring down the price of groceries. Division won't make Canada strong.
This is where negative politics and division and anger takes us. Half of the U.S. fears the other half. They're wary of each other. We can't allow such a situation to occur here in Canada. are increasingly divided, and this will weaken them. And we will win this fight if we are united and strong. Yes, we might disagree over policy. We might disagree over hockey. You can support the Oilers in Ottawa. That's possible. It's a free country, after all. But when it comes to Canada, we're all on the same side. Let's choose to be strong. Canada strong.
Now, I've learned a few things from long experience in crises. And the first is that plan beats no plan. And you need to distinguish what you can change from what you can't. We can't change Donald Trump. Can't change him.
But we have to understand what we can and we must change. We are masters in our own house.
And we can. And because we're masters in our own home, we can control our economic destiny with a plan that puts more money in your pockets. A plan that will ensure your government spends less so Canada can invest more. A plan that builds millions of homes. A plan that makes us an energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy. A plan that creates new trade corridors with reliable partners. A plan that creates one Canadian economy, not 13. Because in Canada, we are stronger when we're united. We can give ourselves far, far more than Donald Trump can ever take away. But it will take extraordinary efforts. It won't be business as usual. We will have to do things we haven't imagined before at speeds we didn't think possible. We will do it. We will do it for the common good so that everyone benefits. You know, I do care about the economy. But it's not because I'm an economist. It's because I care about people. That's why I'm a liberal. That's why we are liberals. On sait.
It's clear that the value of a strong economy starts with the workers who have good, well-paying jobs today and who have better futures for them and for today's youth. We know as liberals that we can't redistribute what we don't have. We also know that we can't be strong abroad if we're weak at home. We also know that we cannot build a better future if we're unable to manage the present.
So, we need a strong economy, but when we're fighting for a strong economy, we're fighting for good Canadian health care for everyone. We are fighting for strong support for our seniors who built this country. We are fighting for child care for young families that they put in place. We are fighting for dental care and pharma care for everyone who needs it. We are fighting for rights. We are fighting for a strong economy so we can create a more sustainable world for our children and grandchildren, and we will deliver. Well, thank you. I know I know that these are dark days. Dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust. We are getting over the shock, but let us never forget the lessons. We have to look after ourselves, and we have to look out for each other. We need to pull together in the tough days ahead. And so, to those families watching this evening in Fort Smith, in Edmonton, and across every community in Canada, I promise you this. Together, we can and we will get through this crisis. We can and we will come out stronger than ever. And we will, because Canada is built on the strength of its people. From our mines to our ports, from our logging roads to our city streets, we're strongest when we're united, when we're one economy, not 13, when we can cheer for different teams and still be on one team when it counts. When we come together, we build things that last because we are Canada strong. Vive la Canada! Merci tout le monde.
Well, I don't know what happened to Mr. Beaver's camera. Oh, there you are. There you are. You disappeared for a bit, but that was fine. Just let the speech roll.
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. There you go. Okay, cool. Apologies there, kids. The phone was getting a little warm there, so I had to make sure I was going.
Shut down for a bit, yeah.
I've shut down for a little bit, and sorry, the camera's a little closer now based on because I tried to do this while I'm still plugged in for a little bit. So as you can see here, kids and cubs, lots of things in that speech. You'll notice that Mark Carney has definitely improved the quality of his French over the past few weeks alone, has developed his timing with regard to comedy and is doing politics. If they're wondering if they could play the political game, he's showing that he can a little bit. He's showing that he's definitely a fast learner, but he is definitely also learning on the job, which is a little tricky. You'll notice that he did say in French that Pierre wanted to cut the Radio-Canada, something Pierre will not say.
Yes.
Lines about kneeling at the altar, never having made a payroll. Lots of good digs, little burns there, which are good. And of course, making a very big point of noting that we are going to put Canada's resources to work to help ourselves on both clean and conventional energy, which is another little piece of red meat to the center right that he's trying to bring in. So overall, great improvement from him. And you can see what the overall themes there. You can see where he is going to go in a stump speech. That's the first time it's sort of presented to Canadians. It's pretty impressive. And again, if you like competence, quality, substance, someone delivering things in a calm way, and gives you the impression, I've got this. Don't worry. He's ticked off the boxes. So what it lacked in sort of like overall greater passion and energy and personality and razzle dazzle, it made up for all the other things. And again, if that's what we're looking for at the moment, then he's batting 1,000 here. All right, Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
I believe we do, sir. I believe we do. There was one other thing I wanted to show you real quick before we go. This was posted a few minutes ago, about 30 minutes ago from orange skinned, small fingered vulgarian. This man is completely unhinged. Globalist Wall Street Journal has no idea what they are doing or saying. They're owned by the polluted thinking of the European Union, which is formed for the primary purpose of screwing, in quotations, the United States of America. Their Wall Street Journal thinking is antiquated and weak and very bad for the USA. But have no fear, we will win on everything. Egg prices are down. No, they're not. Oil is down. That's not good for your economy. Interest rates are down, are they? And tariff-related money is pouring into the United States. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. When oil prices drop, people lose jobs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sweet spot where oil has to be it has to be within this. I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but it has to be within a certain range for it to remain profitable. If it drops below that, people in the patch in Canada and the US find themselves unemployed very quickly.
Yep. Yes, and I believe the USDA has said that the price of eggs is going to is predicted to go up 41% this year.
Yeah.
So, in the United States. Yeah.
So much winning.
So much winning. Are you tired of winning yet? All right. Don't know if I'm going to have time to get through because my phone says 1%. So I'm going to speed through.
Don't worry about it.
If I get dispatched, Mr. Grizzly will close for me.
I'll close it.
Kids and Cubs, that's the end of our show. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Now, if you don't want to miss an episode, you don't have to, especially in podcast form, thanks to the Ray Girl, who has sponsored our pod page, podpage.com/the-truenortheagerbeaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go over there and click subscribe, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Thank you so much for subscribing. And for our podcast listeners, thank you so much for your patience. We are working on it. We're still having some difficulty, unfortunately, but we are working on it. We're hoping to get caught up as soon as possible.
Had some technical difficulties lately, and I think I've got most of them sorted now. So I'll try and get caught up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I've got a few to feed you, so hopefully we'll get all caught up on that. All right, because if you would like to support us, you can surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page where Kids Cassie and Elaine are there to welcome you, asking you to click our buttons, like, share, and subscribe because it helps us with the algorithm. So thank you for that. And if you would like to support us because, we do incur some costs to bring the show to you, and you like the work that we do, and you would like to encourage us to do more, we have a tip jar at our coffee page, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, and you will find the emergency hydration fund. Anything you're able to donate there would definitely be appreciated. If you're not able to donate financially, the gift of your participation and attention are the ones that matter the most to us. Please write to us, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. You can also use that for direct transfer. You can also write to us at TrueEager on our Blue Sky page, at the old bad place on Twitter, and True North Eager Beaver is our place on Facebook. And if you're listening on our YouTube page, right down here in our comment section, let us know what you think. All right, we do read everything, but we're not able to get back to everyone because democracy is something that you do. Quebec Liberal leadership race and by elections coming up in a provincial one in Manitoba. So please be informed about who your candidates are and how you can help. That's what I've got. So kids, it could be a tough world out there. Please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom, please.
Yeah, try and get out there and enjoy the spring-like weather that we're going to have over the next few days. I think it's supposed to hit 14 in Ottawa on the weekend. So get out there and enjoy what's left of winter, because it still is technically winter. We'll be feeling some spring-like temperatures, which is always nice. So a little sunshine, a little exercise, a little fresh air will do the body good, because I know I need it, and I'm going to take it in about 10 minutes when I take out Ms. Lola.
Give her a big squeeze for me. All right,
Will
Mr.
do.
Grizzly, please, before I say that, kids and cubs, thank you for your indulgence today. And Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
Well, I believe Mr. Beaver's camera has died on him. I do have a very quick little Easter egg for you. This is interesting. Faites attention, mes amis.
AI has taken over social media. You've heard about Russia's troll farms, right? Or how governments run massive social media influence campaigns? Well, those old school bots and trolls, they're outdated. Now AI is running the show. Check this out. This AI agent in China, it runs 50 social media accounts 24/7, fully automated. And that's just one system. If this is what we know about, imagine what's happening behind the scenes. There could be millions of these AI agents out there shaping what we see, think, and believe. So next time you're in a heated debate online, just remember, you're probably arguing with the computer.
And there you have it, folks. We are in a very strange timeline. See you later. You take care. Bye.